And welcome, henchmen, back to another action-packed episode of the Deadly Pasta of Kung Fu, brought to you by the Multiverse of Badness, where I, JVD, come from the holy summit of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster to teach you all things that are glorious about Pastafarianism. If you want to talk to me about pasta, flying spaghetti monsters, or anything to do with anything that's deadly, you can contact me over on Twitter at BillsMan, or if you want to follow the podcast, you can follow it over at Deadly Kung Fu Pod. Obviously, that is a joke. It's probably very terrible, but it fits my boys, Mike and Zach, over at Multiverse of Badness. I was just on their podcast over on episode 28, where we talked about Love Me Tenderloin, which is a favorite of mine. I'm a big Cal McDonald fan, and if you've never read any of the Criminal Macabre series, I do recommend listening to that episode. Go read the rest of the books, and go follow Multiverse of Badness wherever you listen to podcasts, and over on Twitter at Multiverse of Bad. It's a good episode. I really love those guys. They're a lot of fun and joy to be with, and maybe here, hopefully in the future, I'm going to try to get these guys on and do an episode here of Deadly Podcast of Kung Fu. Now, today is a first. This will be the first time I've ever covered a complete issue of Deadly. Man, I can't even talk. I'm so messed up trying to get this joke in. This will be the first time I've ever covered a full issue of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. And this will be issue 18. The last episode I did, Saga of the Golden Dragon, which wrapped up in issue 18. At the end of 18, it's always a Sons of the Tiger story, where this one involves Iron Fist, who is about to take over the series as the main character in place of Shang-Chi. So, doing a whole issue here. The thing is, I'm going to use the cover for 9 for podcasting, because Danny Rand's story after this is 6 issues long, just like Saga of the Golden Dragon, but he's only on 2 of the covers, so one of the covers I'll use for the next episode, and then one of them I'm going to use for this episode. That way you get a feel for all the Iron Fist covers. So, yeah, pretty excited about this. You're finally getting a break from all the Shang-Chi stuff as we make our way towards their very first crossover where they first meet, despite the special Kung Fu Edition album, whatever it's called, that I covered way back, which they don't meet each other. They're just involved in the same plot. Now, for this creative story, we have writer Bill Mantlo, we have penciler Pat Brodick, we have inks by Terry Austin, letters by Carrie Mantlo, which is Bill's wife. More on that later. Gaspar Saladino, and the editor is Archie Goodwin. Now, the story we're about to jump into is Fist of Darkness, Fist of Death. Danny Rand never gets any cool titles for her stories. Shang-Chi always gets them. So without further ado, let's go ahead and break down this story. A couple going by the name of Hollywood and Foxy pay to enter the New York City subway system, then immediately shoot and kill the toll booth collector. A nearby cop witnesses the murder and chases the couple onto the subway platform as Hollywood pushes a bystander onto the tracks as a train approaches. Being in the right place at the right time, the Sons of the Tiger spring into action, with Abe going after the young woman while Bob and Lynn chase down the killers. As Hollywood and Foxy make it to the exit, they find themselves under fire by a mysterious man with a bad attitude. Meanwhile, Bob isn't fast enough to save the girl before the train reaches them. Seemingly unaware of another leaping down to the track with him, the man summons energy to his fist and punches the subway train head-on, stopping it in its tracks. The near-death experience leaves the girl in shock, as does the death of Hollywood and Foxy, who have been gunned down in the open, leaving all the witnesses in the same state. As the police arrive and start demanding answers, Blackbyrd, the off-the-cuff mysterious man with a bad attitude, cuts off their questioning and takes the Sons of the Tiger and the unknown hero who stopped the subway cart away. Meanwhile, we see a man named Weasel who is scared about meeting up with someone named Snake Eyes, who is accusing him of being a stoolie. That would be a stooge, or a rat. He guns down the rat and orders his henchmen in the room to dump the body in the Jersey, then gather the rest of the brothers because it's time for the Black Hand to take over Harlem. They have blueprints to a hospital that has discovered an isotope that will stop an epidemic going through the borough while it was attacking blood cells and killing infected within hours. Snake Eye's plan is to steal the cure and hold it hostage for a pricey ransom. At the Yellow Tooth Bar, the Sons of the Tiger, Blackbyrd, are starting to become acquainted with Danny Rand after helping them in the subway. As they are thanking the hero for the big save, the detective notices the bartender is acting suspicious as he leaves to make a call. Following close behind, Blackbyrd tries to eavesdrop but accidentally knocks over a pot, which sends the Black Hand coming after him. Before Snake Eyes can kill him, the Sons of the Tiger and Danny arrive and attack. Not risking his identity, Danny drops out of sight to change in his Iron Fist gi before jumping into the fight. He squares off against Snake Eyes, who almost kills him until Blackbyrd shoots the Black Hand leader in the chest. To everyone's surprise, he doesn't budge as he reveals his chest is made of steel and bulletproof glass due to an accident while in prison. Snake Eyes states the operation also gave him power as he takes out the Sons of the Tiger with one backhand. Realizing he has no choice, Iron Fist summons his chi and shatters the protective chest piece, killing Snake Eyes. The group of heroes and Blackbyrd return back to the Yellowtooth to find there was a bar brawl there during their own fight that has cleared out the establishment. Pretty fishy stuff there. As they celebrate a victory, Danny contemplates killing Snake Eyes, realizing there is no balance brought by his death. As if reading his thoughts, Blackbyrd reminds him nothing will make up for killing another, and it's best to forget about it. As they and the Sons all toast, Danny discovers he likes the taste of beer. This is a story that I've got a lot to say about, and it's not really good. So I'm going to go ahead and take a break. I'm going to hear from our sponsor. If I remember, you're going to hear from a podcasting friend. And when I come back, I'm going to tell you what I don't like about this story, which is a whole lot. Welcome back to the Deadly Podcast, Kung Fu, with myself, JVD, as we break into this terrible, terrible story in the second half of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, issue 18 with Iron Fist and Sons of the Tiger. This story is terrible. It is freaking awful. It is the worst thing that you're probably ever going to read in the history of Danny Rand. The only and best thing about this entire book is where Danny stops the subway with his chi. It's pretty awesome. It's an awesome feat if you're one of the people that's in the feat. I mean, literally, he stops this thing dead in his tracks. And I wish I could just stop dead in my tracks and not talk about the rest of this story, but I am going to have to. The thing is, the opening of this issue is very fast. Jumps from scene to scene without connecting them very well, which is pretty terrible. We never see Blackbyrd in any of the panels until he opens fire on Hollywood and Foxy. And as an ally to the Sons of the Tiger, there's a splash page which would have made sense if he was there, but he's not. So he just comes out of nowhere. And also, we never see what Lynn and Bob are doing during the chase. We just know that, Abe just jumps down there to save this girl. And then Blackbyrd just opens fire. Next thing we know, Hollywood and Foxy are dead. Done. They're basically tombstones. To make this worse, when the cops question the heroes of what happened, Blackbyrd just takes the Sons of the Tiger and Danny out of the conversation and leave, and like it's nothing. So, and after this, story becomes pretty paced. And so after this, I had to stop, and I had to backtrack, and I went all the way back to Deadly Hands number 12, which is the first appearance of Blackbyrd, and I'm trying not to call him Blackbeard. It's very easy to do so. To just try to understand the character and the tone that they're putting in, because he's in 12, then he's in 16, 17, and here at issue 18. And he's a very shocking character to be introduced to if you've never read anything about him, much like myself. He's violent, he's careless, and he doesn't give a damn about nothing, which is everything that I thought the Sons of the Tiger stood for. And even as I went back and read them, you could see he's very gritty. And he's a black man, so he's constantly is against anything that opposes him that is white, and it's not to be racist or anything, but when you read the character and you see some of the stories that he's involved in, he knows that there's a lot of oppression, and he's obviously, like he should be, like any normal human should be offended and should be against that. And yeah, he's just completely careless. He does not care. He's very Punisher in that type of way. And then, and if I sound like crap, I apologize. I have a cold that I've been fighting all week. So let's go ahead and move on to Snake Eyes and the Black Hand. They're your stereotypical villain group, except for they are all black. And everyone is referred to as brother or brother man, except for Snake Eyes and his right-hand henchman, Brother Cash. As the main villain, we literally know no details about his history outside the fact that Blackbeard arrested him for murder of a Vietnam vet. And I'm going to assume that's a white guy. Knowing Bill Mantlo and some of the stories, especially that I've read with Blackbyrd, and I'll get into a little bit more with that here in just a second. But he went to prison for 5 years, and apparently some freak accident caused him to have surgery, and it gave him power outside of being a cyborg. And he looks like he's got this mutagen man thing going from the Ninja Turtles, if you know what I'm talking about. It's basically he's got a glass torso and stomach, and you can see his organs and his eyeballs, and he's got arms and legs, except for with snake eyes, which is kind of crazy that you would even call him Snake Eyes based on what we see. You can just see like his lungs and stuff, just his vital organs in his chest and some type of liquid. But the reason he's called Snake Eyes is literally around his eyes, they have that bumpy scale thing that you would see in like 70s, 80s, and 90s cartoons. So, like if someone drew a snake person, they'd all have them bumpy scales around their eyelids. That's what he's got, and that's the only reason he's called Snake Eyes. And this guy predates Snake Eyes from the G.I. Joe. So this guy is the original Snake Eyes if we're talking comic books. So a little bit more with Black Hand. Their logo is a very, very horrible misrepresentation of the political statement of the clenched fist. If you don't know anything about the clenched fist, which obviously we're living in a time where this is very prevalent and everybody knows because of all the awful things happening in the world to people of color. But, this was made popular by Tommy Smith and John Carlos after winning gold and bronze respectively in the 1968 Olympics. Now, what I don't understand with Bill Mantlo is he likes to be very gritty and edgy and down to earth when it comes to some of his characters. He likes to bring things out that happen on the streets. And obviously, being from New York and this book takes place in Harlem, you figure that that's kind of the thing that he's trying to showcase. And to make that a villain, the logo for a villain organization, I think is very terrible. And that's supposed to be a sign of protest, of standing up. He's using it for a sign of villainy, and I think that's pretty bad, especially that this book takes place in Harlem, and in the 70s, I looked this up, like 60 to 70% of Harlem was black people, and now you're using this symbol and the symbol's old, it's just not in the 60s. I look back, it's been seen as long back since like 1913, but it's kind of a very big misrepresentation for this. And I don't want to talk about any of the racism. I've talked about this when I first started the podcast. Yes, Shang-Chi, Fu Manchu are depicted as being Chinese by the color yellow to color them. And I know it's a product of their time, and I've talked about how I don't ever want to see this. And there are some words that hit them as racist, but these books with Bill Mantlo, I'm really surprised Marvel let him get away with some of the stuff that he did and some of the words that he used, especially in some of the stories before this, with slang terms towards black people and Asian people. I'm very blown away by it. And I get that he's trying to make a point, trying to make it, give it a bit of realism, because that's what he was trying to do with characters like this and Luke Cage. He created Cloak and Dagger. If you know anything about the Cloak and Dagger, how they were subjected to a recreational drug that gave them superpowers, that's what he was trying to accomplish. And this comes off really, really horrible, and I apologize for my daughter in the background. You can tell that she's just yelling at everything. And now to further some of this, being in Harlem, they are taking a hospital. They're going to break into it that has a cure for this disease that's obviously placating Harlem, and I'm going to assume some of the other boroughs. And they're going to steal from it. They're going to hold it for ransom. Like, they're literally against the people. They are a black group that's against just not only everybody. I mean, that includes black people. I don't get it. And today, Marvel would never, ever let any of this happen. And it just kind of blows my mind. Even in the 70s, when this is still a big topic, I mean, that they even let any of this happen. Especially with characters like Luke Cage. Luke Cage was like 3 years prior to this book. Black Panther's like 1966, 67, somewhere around there. So about a decade before this, right before the Olympics at that. And I'm really surprised they let Bill Mantlo get away with some of the words and the verbiage that he's using. Because when it comes to Blackbyrd, everything is oppression against black people. The first book is about a black man being gunned down, and he's screwed over by like basically a white business owner. And then the book before this, or is it 16? 16's pretty bad, because him and the Sons of Tiger have been asked to go undercover in this prison, where it's a state penitentiary where all of the people that run it are racist white people, and they're beating and killing all the black inmates. So that's the type of stuff that you're getting with Bill Mantlo in this series. And just some of the verbiage, especially in that issue 16, I'm really surprised, and I cannot talk about how much I'm surprised that, any Roy Thomas, Archie Goodwin, any of like the editors let him get away with it. It just blows my mind. And this is a big one. So there was a character, the bartender that I talked about, that Blackbyrd noticed going to make a phone call. Obviously he's drawn. You can tell that he's a black man, but he has he's an albino black man, and they call him, I can't believe this, they call him Whitewash. They called a black man Whitewash, and I was like, wow, that really, really surprised me that made it past editors, that you called a black man who has albinism Whitewash. Just completely blows my mind. So, I said that in the beginning of this, I wasn't going to read Sons of the Tiger, and I get that Bill Mantlo was trying to push the issue about everything going on and whatnot, and I just can't believe Marvel let him use some of the verbiage and some of the names that he used to push the issue there. And I'm not saying Bill Mantlo is a bad guy. When he left Marvel, he actually became a public defender for the state of New York to actually help the people of the city out. So, you can see that he actually cared about what was going on. But the fact that, and if I'm right, if I see my history right, once he got to law school through Marvel's, where they would pay for your college education, and he actually used it to sue Marvel before he went on and done any of this. And then he was in a tragic accident, like in the early 90s, like 1992, 93, which he's still in the hospital for today. Basically, it severed his brainstem, and he can barely do anything without any assistance. So, I'm not saying Bill Mantlo's a bad guy. I get what he was going for, and I noticed by history what he stands for. But I still can't believe that Marvel let him get away with a lot of the words. And the whitewash with the albino black man is just bottom tier of some of the language that's in some of these books. It really blows my mind. But the ending is not very Iron Fist, in my opinion. Danny goes from being in deep contemplation, wondering if he did the right thing with killing Snake Eyes. Before Danny struck him with his chi, he realized the Black Hand is pure evil. And he even says that Snake Eyes is a monster. And he wants to hold this cure for ransom, which is like inexcusable. So he knows to save humanity from a monster, he has to actually kill him. So, and he does it. And he does it regrettably. That's kind of Danny's thing in the books before this, is he does not want to use his chi at all to murder people. He wants to use it only when necessary, and here he has to do it. So, so how do you go from this deep contemplation, from taking advice from a hard-boiled detective who says to forget it not too long after you kill this guy, and a guy that, he had no qualms about gunning down criminals in front of civilians without caring about their well-being. This guy's just like, oh, forget this Blackbeard guy. So, does that make Blackbyrd any different from Snake Eyes? You were gunning down people, obviously the wrong people, in front of civilians. You were putting them at risk because there was a shootout in the open. Does that not make Blackbeard any different from Snake Eyes in this book? It kind of does. The Punisher doesn't even try to get at shootouts in a public space. He's very precise about what he does. So really, I don't see Blackbeard being any different than the villain of this book. And honestly, it might make him way worse, in my opinion. So, but anyways, this is a terrible story. I didn't even want to do this. I'm glad it's over with, and I can move on to the next saga that we've got going on with Firebird. But I'm JVD. You can follow me on Twitter for Deadly Podcast of Kung Fu. You can check us out over on Twitter at Deadly Kung Fu Pod. If you like our music, check out Rushing Tiger by Kuro over on SoundCloud. You can follow the Villains Man anywhere you want on social media. Just check out Villains Man wherever you're at. Remember, guys, in the end, support your local comic book shops. Support your favorite podcast, and keep reading comics, guys.